victorious return from the dead music. Wake up! You forgot my victorious return from the dead resurrection music!
Oh, sorry, President. It's been a while and I kind of fell asleep.
We'll do it again!
Oh.
I'd return from the dead. And oh, my clothes, my hair, my makeup, it's all different. Look, check it out. Wow, Jesus never got that perk. Excellent. And HD? I'm an HD now. Being dead rocks. How long did it take? 3 days? More? 4 days? More, much more, 3 years. $22.75 days. Oh, I'm sick of this shit! How long? 3 weeks! Fuck! Still, did better than Jesus. He didn't exist. Hit the new theme music! Wow, that's awesome. Greetings, gentle viewers, and welcome to Diamanda Hagan Reviews. Tonight we're supposed to be taking a look at Intermedio, which is a terrible film by the Asylum. But because I am now God, I have decided that what is contained inside this DVD is actually 90 minutes of Alison Hannigan servicing each and every woman I find attractive, in order of attractiveness. Now, Teddy, hold this.
That's necklace.
It's only us. Open it, Teddy. And it's actually now The Dead and the Dying, which is the British title for Intermedio. You fucking... Oh well, still did better than Jesus. He didn't exist. This is Intermedio, aka The Dead and the Dying. Now, this review is going to hurt me, not because the film is shit, even though its shitness is well worth avoiding it for. It's going to hurt me because of the cast, one in particular. Amber Benson replaced Alison Hannigan as my favourite Buffy the Vampire Slayer performer when she arrived. I've met her in person and I own an autographed copy of her directorial debut film, Chance. Amber's an awesome actor, writer, director, singer, and she's a lovely person to boot. But she's also in this film. I'm sorry, Amber, I really am, but you've got to be punished like the rest of them. We open on quite a lot of yellow shots. Seriously, it looks like we drank a litre of gold paint and pissed on the negative. Condor! Sky! Well, that's a good start. A chicken's neck gets snapped by a Mexican stereotype. In the car, we have 2 irritating children who can't act, and their dads, who also can't act. The dads are going to meet up with the Mexican stereotype for the purposes of getting into the tunnel that'll take them over the border to Mexico. Also, this is supposed to be the 1980s. Anyone there look like they're from the 1980s? Nope. Moving on. The chicken begins to bleed, the Mexican gets paid a hell of a lot of cash, and we get a shot of what's sure to be Chekhov's handkerchief. And according to this gay handkerchief code that I found on the internet, light blue in his left pocket means that he wants to receive oral sex, which is probably true. Well, there goes a perfectly good joke. The guys are going to buy some drugs. Considering that they just gave the guy thousands of dollars to use his tunnel, I'm wondering how they're going to bring back the amount of drugs they would need to make this trip worthwhile. And yes, they're leaving those kids in a boiling car, in a desert, alone. So an old man, played by Steve Railsback, turns up and pours blood from a vial, which turns into bad CGI and kills the men, somehow. And then we see the real terror of this film.
The people that brought us Snakes on a Train, Transmorphers, Nightmare Hostel, Alien vs. Hunter, and it's not even based on an actual film. So there's absolutely no good ideas on display here. Okay, well I guess one person's stupid enough to have not committed suicide. Let's go.
The credits last for almost as much time as the pre-credit sequence. The music gives up and stops partway through, and guess what? The composer is a company, not a person. As the sign says, we're 18 years later and that sweet and innocent little boy has become Edward Furlong.
I can only assume that seeing his dad go into a large sweaty Mexican's dark hole scarred him for life.
And the grown-up version of the little girl arrives, with a gun.
Actually, wait, they never told us the names of those two little kids. So I'm going to assume that the little girl grew up to be Edward Furlong and the little boy grew up to be whoever she is. Why? Because it's the closest thing to amusement I'm going to get while watching this.
And her t-shirt says Carl.
Huh, maybe I've accidentally picked up on something subtle and deliberate. Sort of.
So Amber Benson arrives.
Now this is as good a time as any to introduce this. This is the Lesbotron 9001. It's over 9,000. Now, because Amber Benson is at her best when playing lesbians or sapphically inclined people or lesbians, I have created this device. It is currently being inhabited by a man that the minions have reliably informed me is called Please, please help me, please don't hurt me, please let me go. Now, for every 10 minutes of the film that Amber Benson doesn't do anything lesbian-y, he will feel pain. If she does anything lesbian-y, he can go free. If she doesn't, he will eventually die. Maybe not today, but he will eventually die. Now, movie, Amber, let's see what you got.
Hey, babe.
Sorry.
The floppy-haired boyfriend of Carl arrives and begins laying out exposition about the tunnels that we saw in the pre-credit sequence.
Minion! Do the dance of exposition. Minion! No longer do the dance of exposition.
So they get to the tunnels and...
They say that if you catch a dead man's blood before it hits the ground...
Minion, resume the dance of exposition.
So they go into the tunnel and the Mexican...
Dude, your knife is bleeding.
So in the tunnel, someone finally gets around to mentioning that this is meant to be the fabled home of the El Intermedios, pissed off ghosts who kill anyone who invades their space. The only one worried by this is Amber Benson.
Even though she's not one of the half of the cast whose dads vanished down there without a fucking trace.
The floppy-haired ass tries to get some from Carl, his brunette female love goddess.
Because tunnels are so romantic.
And they walk, and walk, and walk, and walk.
Oh hey, sunlight! Behind them.
And walk, and walk, and walk.
I swear they keep reusing the same bits of tunnel over and over and over again.
Amber Benson gets lost and finds a boiling pool of water.
I don't know who's dumber, Amber Benson's character for doing that, or Amber Benson for agreeing to play her.
After you begin wondering how this could all be made even longer, they all manage to meet up with the Mexican drug dealers. So Steve Railsback turns up looking like his character in Turkish It's Dried Out Corpse and pours more blood than is physically possible out of his pendant.
This calls The Angry Ghosts, made of not so special effects.
Buddy!
The quartet and the surviving Mexican run off, and the Mexican decides that the ghosts and whatnot that happened was clearly an ambush by Americans who didn't want to pay for their drugs.
He's dumb like that.
Given the seriousness of the situation, they talk about what they should do.
I cannot stay here anymore. I'm getting out of here. No, we cannot leave. Linda's ankle won't make it, I fear. I cannot stay. I killed my lay. I must go now. You can't go now. I must. You can't. I must. You can't. Bitches out for blood. I can't take this anymore.
So yeah, the Yanks have decided to split up.
They're dumb like that.
Floppy Guy steps in a shallow hole and is swallowed up by the floor, which is actually made of blood.
And Mexican quicksand.
He falls through the floor and ends up bone dry in another bit of tunnel, which looks like the same bit of tunnel. And the tunnels, they have to be real. Sets don't look that shit. Apparently, the evil Mexican quicksand teleported him near the entrance because within minutes he finds it, but unfortunately the dead Mexican stereotype killed by Steve Railsback is lying on the trapdoor and stops him getting out.
Why the hell did Steve Railsback wait until now to kill this guy? He's been letting people down there for 20 or 30 years. And how the hell did Steve Railsback get down there after he killed him? He's left the guy's body on top of the trapdoor.
And we're back with the walking, arguing, arguing.
You are far more interesting than Intermedio. Yes, you are. You open doors. Yes, you do.
Walking.
This is like The Descent, but shit. No, sorry, wait, The Descent 2 was The Descent, but shit. This is like The Descent 2, but shit. No, sorry, The Cave was The Descent 2, but shit. This is like The Cave, but shit.
So they reach a trapdoor.
It looks just like the other ones, but with no ladder.
Hey, come here.
Oh, it looks like they're doing something clever. They're going to use the crutches to... Oh, no, he's picking up the girl with the broken foot in order to get her to open the door.
He is smart.
That is so gonna end up in my starting one of these days.
The ghost seems to be a cross between a crappy glow-in-the-dark skeleton suit and a Tron outfit. The crap CGI! The fact that the ground moves while Amber writhes in pain. It's just...
It's a screw-Delvic! It's a post-necro! It's positively intercrastic in its intercontrafabularities! What? If the filmmakers don't give a shit, why should I?
Obviously I'm sad that Amber Benson's dead.
Actually, I'm not sorry, Amber Benson. You were in this film. This shit film. You didn't even make out with a girl. You didn't do anything lesbonic. You did nothing for me, Amber Benson. And for this once, I am not sorry that you're fucking dead. Yes, I am.
The Mexican guy's had his fingers cut off, although he's clearly just made fists and covered them in fake blood. Edward Furlong keeps hugging Amber's character because if he doesn't, she might fall over.
And force them to pay for a mannequin.
So they run off, followed by someone who's oddly grey for a film whose idea of a realistic outside coloration is piss yellow.
The baddies have also run off with Amber's body.
What the fuck did the baddies do? Freeze the ground around her and dig her up as a slab?
Because I'm not seeing any other possibilities.
They meet up with floppy-haired guy who's coming from the Mexican side of the tunnel system even though he was last seen at the entrance to the US side. They argue about who gets the light.
Because holy crap, the tunnels are meant to be dark!
Floppy-haired guy gets attacked by some arms behind a wall.
It worked better in Day of the Dead. You know why? Talent!
Somehow everyone, including the guy with no fingers, gets up into a safe house built into the ceiling of the tunnel.
And no, there wasn't a ladder.
Edward Furlong snaps and attacks a wall.
Kudos to you for building this one out of something solid.
Why is he doing that? I don't know. I think he's just realised that he's gone lower than anyone in history to get money for blow.
Yeah, even lower than that glam metal guy who sucked random guys' dicks for cocaine money.
Floppy-haired guy dies in a pretty damn crap way.
Texas Chainsaw, it is not.
A ghost kills the Mexican and he makes a stock scream so loud that it can be heard high over the now not yellow mountains. and yet Edward Furlong and Carl in the next room don't hear it. So even though we saw him get an axe in his back and we heard him get stabbed a fuckload of times, floppy-haired ass is back. He confesses he saw Carl and Edward Furlong's dads go into the pit and didn't help them, which would be shocking if he wasn't a child at the time and therefore did nothing wrong, and if, oh yes, anyone gave a shit! He also says that he knew about the ghosts and the other people who had died, and he brought them there anyway, because the script said so. And then he dies.
Again.
So they somehow escaped into the dumping pit for the bodies. They act shocked that the smelly, squishy, body-shaped things could in fact be bodies, and are led to safety by the grey guy, who's a ghost, and who tells them that the other ghosts are being controlled by Steve Railsback.
So why is he there? Why isn't he controlled by Steve Railsback? Why does he look different from the other ghosts? Because... what the fuck is that?!
Carl climbs the ladder and manages to move the body of the Mexican stereotype, even though earlier the much larger and more muscular floppy-haired ass couldn't.
Either that body's rotted a hell of a lot in the last few hours, or she's She-Hulk.
They run into Steve Railsback at the house of the dead Mexican stereotype and don't realise that he's the baddie. How he got there, because the trapdoor is fucking blocked by the Mexican, I have no idea. He drives away with them and drugs Carl by way of a sealed can of beer. Yes, a sealed can of beer. We also get a flashback to more than 20 years ago when Steve Railsback killed his son for being a druggie and took mystical control of the ghosts.
Like the Mexican, Steve Railsback hasn't aged at all in the last 20 years. To compare, this is Steve Railsback in 1982. This is Steve Railsback in 1986. All I can say is he must have had a rough 1985. I'd blame the naked alien space vampires myself.
Close your eyes.
Visited you how?
In my mind.
Let it go!
Right Force. The terror has just begun.
So Steve Railsback is killing people because he killed his son for being a drug addict.
You know, the sad thing is that this is not the stupidest reason I've ever seen anyone give for killing. At least he's not a superpowered zombie as well.
So Railsback takes them to the dead body pile and just leaves them to die.
Well, that's too obvious to mock.
The ghost of Railsback's son saves them again, and Railsback fights a 20-year-old she-male.
Well, over the years in all of his C and D and E-list movies, he's fought pretty much everything else.
Why Railsback's son didn't help anyone else in the last 20 years, I have no idea. The pendant gets destroyed and Railsback is CGI'd to death.
Because ghosts that have against their will been forced to kill people will get revenge on the person who turned them into murderers by eviscerating him.
So everything is now happy. Edward Furlong and Carl's friends are dead. They have to talk to the police about the dozens and dozens of bodies littering the tunnels and get into trouble for transporting drugs. And even though they've never been romantically attached and have both lost their partners, they still find time to have an off-screen fuck before they go.
And given that I've decided that they're both transsexuals who haven't had the operation, I can only assume that the off-screen sex was much more interesting than the rest of the film. Why else would the ghost be watching?
This film is a masterful mix of the stupid and the boring. I choose to believe it's deliberate because my death list doesn't need to be made any longer. It's bad, bad, bad. It's Children of the Living Dead level incompetence. Sure, it's pretty unique, but sometimes things aren't done because they're stupid ideas. There are only two positive things in this film. One is the casting of Edward Furlong, Steve Railsback and Amber Benson, who are all great actors. And two was having the two main characters swap sex during the credits.
And I made that up!
On the DVD there's a short making of where it's pretty clear that no one gave a crap about the film, and Edward Furlong appears to be higher than a nerd's cock at the Museum of Naked Lucy Lawless.
Well, that's great, Edward, Amber, and all the rest of them. I'm glad you had fun wasting time and money in the desert when you made this piece of shit. I just wish that the audience could have a fraction of the same amount of fun. I've watched this film 3 times. Internet, what do you say to that? I guess that makes sense. I'm Diamanda Hagan and I have to live with that every day.
Hey, 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 another story about another dead American. Hey, 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 another story about another dead American. Hey, 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 another story about another dead American. Hey, 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 one more story about a dead American.
1945, the People's Army of Watts was organized to rid the community of drugs, prostitution, and crime. The project was a total wipeout.
If we can't stop the gangsters from working here, we can at least protect our people from their brutality.
Protection is one thing, but an all-out war is something else.
Oh, come on
Look,
now.
I know you, Koja.
I only want them for protection.
They had to become the Black Gestapo, the new master race.